The World Below, a new tabletop role-playing game by Onyx Path Publishing, run by me, Matthew Dawkins, for V, Matthias, and Craig. Worms, maggots, grubs, leeches. Things that crawl without limbs, burrow into the skin, feast on flesh and blood, and drop off fat ready to burst. You've each made your way through nests of these things as you burrow deep into the world below, burrowing like these wormlings burrow into bodies, and now you are caged. Trapped, laying flat against the stone with a cage of bones surrounding you. That's right. Trillin, Luke, and Kiva, you have ended up trapped before you even began. We should, of course, establish how it is that you ended up where you are, and that is what we are about to do. These three intrepid adventurers and their companion Zions set forth from a settlement well known for its civility, Telva's Hearth. Telva's Hearth, a great subterranean settlement in the Iron Stratum, known for its forges, known for the metal sheeting that covers its ceiling, its walls, and supposedly various cracks, fissures, holes, and tunnels that may be enticing for various creatures to crawl through. It becomes a living oven, essentially, but one where many jobs can be found, pretty much any metalwork can be procured, and also a safe place to rest your head during the calm season. That's where you started. For some of you, Telva's Hearth doubles not only as a safe place to rest, but also home, whether temporary or not, and it's always a struggle to leave home, but you've all reached a certain age where you're ready to start exploring the world around you. Your training is at an end. Now it's time to explore, and the world below is a world that invites exploration. It is impossible to map it all, because every calm season the tunnels shift, caves collapse, new places are opened up. Sometimes some intrepid explorers are fortunate enough to find an entire lost city opening up right beside their settlement. Other times they might find a cache of treasure, or, perhaps more unfortunately, a nest of some very angry bugs of colossal size that are unhappy having been woken up. The world below is inhabited. You are not the only people. Indeed, there are people of a sapient variety such as you, but there are also many creatures down here. Now, the philosophical question of who are the real monsters in a world like this is one that certain guild members will argue until the sunflies go out, but the truth of the matter is, you build things. You read, you try to further your lineages, you try to learn, you try to explore, you try to make a better life for yourself in adversity. The creatures you often find yourself fighting, whether it is for survival, for hunting, or just because this thing may one day threaten your home, the vast majority of them aren't so interested in civilization. They see you as interlopers, and they may be right. You are, after all, descendants of a people that once upon a time descended into the world below because the world above became inhospitable. So your three characters, when you were in Telva's Hearth, maybe they knew each other before they left. I think so. Whether you grew up with each other is another question, or whether you just all signed on with the same guild. That may be what binds you. But maybe it would be a good idea right now to introduce who it is that you are playing. And you can do this in as bare or as florid terms as you like. I may even add bits and pieces. So let's start with Craig. Who are you playing as, Craig? Tell us about your character.
Well, I am Luck. I am a shortish hobgob, which is a sort of... Well, I assume they sound like a sort of goblin-esque-like species, possibly. I like to think that. So I've got quite big ears, quite short. I have strange granite-like teeth, as a result of my not my calling, but my dialectic, which is the Adamus, which is all about precious stones and gems and a connection to the stone. And I am a silhouette, which is a sort of... Well, it's an interesting job. It's very good at getting things from places and finding things. And I like finding things and getting things, because gold is fun and gems are fun and precious stones are fun. And I like going places as well. That's why I'm part of the union of the cartographers and stratigraphers, which is, is all about exploring the world and the tunnels and finding things and hoping to find things that benefit people, of course. Because, nasty things aren't very nice. And I like to wear my little hood and cloak, and yes, I suppose that's me, Luck. Luck the silhouette.
Wonderful. And where does Luck hail from originally? Do you have a settlement or community?
Mud Town.
That means you are from much higher up than some of your companions. Mud Town is far closer to the surface, which is a place very few people wish to visit, and even fewer return from when they do. So at some point you or your family made the journey deeper to Telver's Hearth. Telver's Hearth is connected to Mud Town via a route referred to sometimes as the Ferris Road, sometimes as the Many Ways Dark. It is one of the few means of transit that withstands subsequent calm seasons and does so without totally collapsing. It isn't safe, don't get me wrong. A lot of it is vertical drops, but it is a way that traders, messengers, couriers, cartographers, such as yourself, will travel to get from point A to point B, in this case Mud Town to Telver's Hearth, with some ease. It's just unfortunate that there aren't more large settlements built around it.
True, but they're growing. They're growing, and everyone respects people from Mudtown, all good workers, we all are, and I do my part, even if it's maybe not so... Well, some people debate whether I'm doing things that are useful or not. I think it's very useful.
Well, how about V? V, you're playing Kiva. Who is Kiva?
I'm a Kiru. I look, some people say, like I did when I was born, which is a little bit like a rat. But I mean, I look enough like a human where, like, if you weren't paying attention to, like, my face or the claws, you probably wouldn't even know. Similar to Luck, I'm also from the Union of Cartographers and Stratigraphers, but I'm actually from Telver's Hearth. Yeah, I concern myself a lot with what's going on here in the deep, because additionally, in addition to being a cartographer and a stratigrapher, I'm also a little bit of a they call us well worshippers. I mean, we're just really in tune with the chaos wells and just all the stuff, all the magic stuff. There's kind of a lot going on all the time down here with the chaos, and I find it all very, very fascinating. Very fascinating. Very, very fascinating.
Indeed, chaos is a potent lure for any kind of explorer, whether it's explorers of sorcery or explorers of the world below, and it just turns out that Kiva is both of those things. Chaosist is how they're known. Some might consider them wild magicians or sorcerers in the old definition of the word, but they are also some of the best world shapers around when they can be relied upon, which is rarely. Chaos does indeed, at least if rumours are to be believed, emerge from a location known as the Well, which is almost at the world below's deepest point. I doubt you've ever visited. Much like the surface, not many people who visit the well come back, but that doesn't mean people don't come to worship it. The well is, after all, the source of power. It's the source of life. It is chaotic, yes, but without it, would any of you truly be able to survive down here? Of course, people like you end up worshipping the well. There's a lot to be thankful for, even if it seems not to care for your prayers.
No, you're right. I haven't actually been to the well myself, but that's what the new tattoo is for. Because maybe, just maybe, me and my friends, we can get there. Because I just know that if I got close, I think maybe we could do some good. Maybe.
That leaves Matthias and Trillin. Matthias, who are you playing?
I am Trillin. I am a trader and a diplomat. I like to bring people together, to bring peace and prosperity to all of us living here in this world below. This world speaks to me, after all, and it provides for those who listen. And I listen very attentively, especially to the spores and the fungi. You need to do that, especially as a Chilzul refugee living among the descendants of the Great Descent. Yeah, that's who I am, Trillin.
What can you tell us about being a farsighter, Trillin? What does that entail?
I don't know how much of that I have truly made sense of. I just know that I have powers that not everyone has. I can see things that not everyone can see, and that's good. That helps me to bring people together, to bring peace, and to help us to build things here, build communities. There's not too much to go around down here after all, and we need to work together if we are to survive and to thrive in this environment. What else does being a farsighter mean to someone like me?
Well, it means that the world below speaks to you. And whether that makes you a priest, a paladin, a diviner, an oracle, depends on how you channel it. As you say, you are a trader and a diplomat. And being a farsighter is a useful trait to have when your intent is to read other people, to persuade other people, to make an exchange of ore for coin or goods for services. You serve a useful function, and the vast majority of leaders in the world below are also farsighters. There may be a grand destiny awaiting you, Trillin, if you can survive this current encounter, which we'll come back to. What brought you to the Sapphire Stratum was the potent lure of discovery. You set forth from Telva's Hearth, to many of you home, as we've pointed out, after a wanderer staggered into the city following the most recent chaos storms. His body was clad in numerous drained and broken chaos rocks. His pack was filled with riches. He claimed to have found a lost temple in the Sapphire, where the blue gems cut veins through the earth, and was swiftly convinced to part ways with a map in exchange for healing he desperately needed. Mercenary, yes, but the union of cartographers and stratigraphers is very... well, they consider maps entirely useful, and probably more useful than the people who sometimes create them. And so, yeah, they said, we will patch up your wound. We will use some of our holies to incant sorcery and bind your injuries together, but we want a map to this lost temple that you found, where you found all these riches. This wanderer, Laquoro was his name. It wasn't the first time he'd been to Telva's Hearth. He wasn't completely unknown, and according to reputation, Laquoro was an honest individual, albeit maybe stupid. He ventured forth with an entire party from the settlement of Eriholk, and to return in the middle of a chaos storm, well, implies something desperately dangerous had beset his group, especially as he was the only one to make it to Telva's Hearth. As it is, you made the journey. The four of you, because you were also joined by Zions, a rather grim Templar, an individual who keeps himself to himself, mutters a lot, often states the mantra, the world below provides, or changes it slightly, the world below protects. sects. He's no fanatic by any means, but you are convinced that he convinces himself of his rightful destiny by thanking the world below in the way that his dogma insists. He is a hunter, and so he was well placed to act as your scout. At least he was for a while. He was just as young and foolish as you. Still is. He's not dead. Not yet. But now you're here. Now you're here because the Cartographers Guild offered you backing to form your own habitat, all four of you, if you can verify Lequoro's map. The Union of Stratigraphers and Cartographers is very insistent on that matter. No map can be taken at face value. The information must be verified. That's for you four to do. Unfortunately, your journey didn't get far. Yes, you exited Telver's Hearth. Yes, you equipped yourself, you said your goodbyes to your loved ones, your colleagues, your peers, your fellow guildmates. But eventually, you started stumbling through caves of worms, of parasites, of grubs, and you realised that the world around you was becoming more hostile, that you were no longer in Telver's Hearth. Civilization was far away. You were following the map that Lequoro had apparently made to reach Telver's Hearth, but it became no surprise to you why only Lequoro made it back. Now, here you are, in a vast round tunnel. Barely a stalagmite or stalactite to be seen in either direction, but plenty of people in long cloaks trailing threads that may or may not be worms. Their leader, a figure in a robe of deep purple set with twinkling blue gems, leans over you in your cage.
Can you, feel the rumbling? The sound of thunder? Furundin comes. Furundin approaches. You will form a part of an unending cycle. You will be glad when the pain ends, but gladder still when you become a useful part of life's great transaction.
These kind of mad words, sadly common to individuals who remain distant from settlements for calm season after calm season. Can I ask any one of you, you can decide among yourselves, to roll either a survival plus intellect or esoterica plus intellect. It's D10s and you're looking for 8s and above.
Oh yeah, no. This is this is my wheelhouse. Here's hoping. Let's see. That is 1, 2, 3. That is 3 successes then.
So 3 hits of 8 and above. Did you get any 10s? Because they count as 2 hits.
Oh yes, I did. I got 2 10s actually.
Wow. Okay, so we're looking at 5 hits. Now, do you want to convert any of those into things like tricks, combat tricks, or something that you can use to your advantage here? Because you don't need more than one to succeed on this particular action. I can describe your surroundings for you if that will help.
Please.
So right now you're in a cage, as I mentioned, of bone. There are slats and gaps within it. The 4 of you were rendered unconscious on your way here. A gas spat out by spores delicately placed by gentle hands in the cavern wall so that when you tripped, you got a face full of them. When you came to, you were already placed in this cage, which is nowhere near tall enough for you to stand in. It's about 3 feet in height. Only Luck is of a height where he can even approach being comfortable in this. So it's a lot easier to just lay down because the cage is longer on the ground than it is tall. The tunnel in which you have found yourself is vast. And when I say vast, it is about 50 feet across in all directions. It looks like something great and destructive has bored its way through from one end to the other. There are some glowflies, but mostly it's lichen that makes this place illuminated. Certainly these individuals in their robes aren't carrying torches or chaos rocks or anything that can provide light. There are no, as I mentioned, stalagmites or stalactites protruding from the environment around you, which is a shame, because such things are quite useful to drop on someone's head if you have the ability. But luckily the cage itself doesn't seem terribly secure, and you aren't bound. You are held, sure, because you have a cage over you, and there are people surrounding you, some manner of cult. But beyond that... Now, would you like me to tell you what your success gives you before you agree how to spend your additional hits?
Yes, that was actually going to be my next question.
Furundin. You have heard of Furundin. Hell, you have heard Furundin. It isn't just a hear of. Furundin is a giant, and I mean giant, worm. A huge... It's not even a parasite, it's a force of nature that bores these vast tunnels through the world below. If you get in its way, well, it's not going to stop, quite frankly. It will swallow you or it will crush you into the dirt around you. And for all intents and purposes, you have been laid down here in one of its tunnels. These people, given that you scored more than one hit here, are almost certainly Furundina. They are cultists of the worm. They are followers absolutely dedicated to Furundin and ensuring that its passage is smooth, but that it remains fed with organic matter, because they use its wake to grow crops, to form their own habitats in walls and ceilings and floors. They worship the worm because the worm, wherever it goes, makes the earth more fertile, which is a boon, to be fair. Much like your worship of the well, whether Furundin cares for what these people are doing or providing in its way is largely immaterial. They benefit from wandering around in its wake, and they're smart enough to not get in front of it unless it's time to sacrifice a few people to the great worm because crops yields are low.
That's okay. Okay, so there's nothing that I can drop on these people, but I'm hoping that I can maybe while they're, you know what, I'm not great at combat generally, so I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to distract. I'm going to use my point spends to become a distraction, because there are lots of people and I want to give Luck a really good chance to maybe get free and do a little bit of the sneaky that like Luck is really, really good at, or that Trillin maybe has something up his sleeve that, you know, could help. So yes, I am going to be a distraction. So I'm going to kind of start just banging on the cage to try and get everybody's attention to come over, and then just kind of start talking about all the things that I know about Furundin, and maybe kind of make it seem a little bit like I'm interested in converting to their little group.
That does draw their interest. I mean, you scored a decent handful of hits there. And some of the cultists are murmuring among themselves, maybe this rat could be a worthy acolyte. The leader, who you hear referred to as Luthar, holds out a hand which is dripping in smaller worms that just wriggle all over the back of his hand, down his fingers, and trail to the floor. You have to wonder whether there's anything humanoid inside that long robe of his. And he looks at you with a rather blank expression, while you're trying to advertise your qualification to become a Furundina.
So, little Makiru, got ideas of being beyond sacrifice, is that right? We hear many people plead they don't understand that their sacrifice revitalizes the world below, makes it livable for people like us. To be an acolyte, to be like I am, it takes more than fancy words.
And he looks you over, trying to see any recognisable insignia, and he refers to you as mapped one.
This is probably the wrong time to ask, but what do you have to offer the Furundina that these poor desperate... Well, I'll call them what they are. Fertilizers. Do not.
It's at this point that I will actually unwrap my right hand, which just is typically wrapped up in just like a simple bandage. And I will twist my hand outwards and tilt it down just a little bit as this globule of water kind of forms in it, like a little sphere, an orb, I guess, of water. And it just kind of starts like trickling from my fingers. And I just say, I'm an elementalist, and you grow crops, and we all know that fresh water down here is very hard to find, and I can be useful to helping the greater good of the coven, the Furundina. Mm-hmm.
While you're talking, then, Trillin and Luck, how are you intending on taking advantage of, at the very least, the High Priest is engaged in conversations with Kiva? That may give you an opportunity, albeit only a slim one. The Furundina, in their hubris, have not disarmed you. Perhaps it's because now you can actually feel the earth rumbling beneath you. Furundin isn't slow. When Furundin approaches, Furundin does not stop. And it doesn't matter what you're armed with, Furundin will, well, absorb you in some way or other. So, yeah, you still have weapons, you still have items and equipment. In the eyes of the Furundina, that all adds to a nice, healthy, balanced diet for the giant worm.
I suppose as I'm sitting there scratching my granite-like teeth, being mildly offended at being called fertilizer, I'm trying to look at the cage itself. Again, I'm quite small. Is it maybe possible I could start wiggling out of the cage? Maybe?
Well, you've got someone looking, as we mentioned, you've got someone looking at Kiva. You may need to use one of your sorceries or a power or one of your an object to cause a distraction away from the cage so that you can do that in the opposite direction. But certainly I would give you an enhancement to that because of Kiva's existing efforts.
Well, maybe getting out of the cage is the last thing, not the first thing. But maybe I could do something. I kind of reach into my little cloak, and I bring out my lovely little pet rock, who's called Rock, because he's a rock. The thing about Rock is that he has a habit of always coming back to me whenever I throw him anywhere. And he's, not a big rock by any means, but he can, if you throw him right, he can make a bit of a noise. So maybe if I aim him nice and steady, I can get some of these lovely cultists to maybe be a little distracted by a classic, "What's that?" So I'm going to try that. I get my little rock out, and I just very quickly skim him off my finger and try and aim him somewhere on the cavern wall to make a nice big rackety sound.
Yes, the famous silhouette "What's that?" move. It never fails, well, except when it does. I would like for you to make an athletics and dexterity roll, please. Yeah, we'll return to you regardless. What we're looking is to see how well you can get it to ricochet to make it sound like many things going on instead of just hitting the wall once.
Lovely. Truth be told, I don't really have much athletic skill, but that's alright because I do have a lot of natural dexterity.
I'll let you use ranged combat if you have that instead.
Oh, I do. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits.
4 hits, very impressive. Would you like each one to be a subsequent ricochet, or is there a different action you wish to take with these enhancements? Bear in mind you've already got an additional one based on Kiva's work, so that is effectively 5 hits instead of 4. So on its return, you could have it hit someone if you want to draw that kind of attention. But that may mean that the distraction is wasted. It's your choice.
No, I think I would like those hits to... Well, it caused the complication. The complication being it is a nice successful distraction, because not only do I hit the wall, I maybe manage to dislodge something that comes crashing down. Again, not to anyone's harm, but just making a nice, sudden movement or noise that would distract quite a few of them.
Fortuna favours you, Luck, because with that number of hits, indeed, your pet rock goes whistling through the air without these cultists knowing, and connects with the wall, bash, 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 as it makes 5 successful hits, thus weakening the concealed opening into this tunnel. The Furundina aren't going to be stood in here. You realise that early on. They're not going to wait for Furundin to consume them. They want to hang around somewhere else. But how they get into and out of this tunnel without being directly in its path now becomes clear. You have dislodged one of the light series of rocks that they basically use as, well, sliding doors. And it comes crashing to the tunnel floor, exposing a way out for you, potentially, that isn't directly in the path of the oncoming freight train that is a worm. Naturally, Luthar, the High Priest, looks up at this, but he keeps one eye, strangely, on Kiva, while the other one kind of rotates, swivels, and bulges outwards in the direction of the crashing rock, and he commands some of the cultists around him. Another sacrifice! Head over there. Seize whoever is emerging through into our tunnel. Furundin comes close. I can feel it. I can feel it in the earth. A good half of the cultists now depart, grabbing daggers in their hands. Some of them, likewise, Trillin, you see, leaking from their loose cloak sleeves and from beneath them. Wormlings of various kind. Trillin, you know that this was a distraction from Luck. How are you going to capitalise?
We need to get to this Luthar. We need to get him close. We need to get him to help us open up this cage and allow us to escape through here. So I think I will stand by Kiva's side, and being a fairly striking individual as I am.
Yes, you are a scaled Chilzil. There aren't many of them.
Exactly. Use that unique part of me to catch his attention further and perhaps even get his curiosity piqued so that he will want to move in closer and perhaps close enough for us to be able to even grab him. And
the eye that is fixed on you bulges further as Trillin comes into view. You adjust your cloak. You are still pretty much flush to the ground. This is only a 3-foot cage, so it's difficult to appear in any way appealing. And maybe this is why Luthar didn't actually get a good scope of what you look like before. You are, after all, just food for the worm. So when you move in next to Kiva, his eyeball bulges out. Oh, exotic meat.
Yes, indeed. Why don't you come a little bit closer? You can perhaps have a taste yourself.
Oh, I do not. I will have what Furundin leaves behind. What are you, son? You bear the hallmarks of many cultures.
He leans in despite himself.
Oh yes, you are. Furundin will appreciate you.
And when he is close, I will use a useful item then. I have some charm spores with me, but I've been told that we have one more useful item. Is there perhaps something that I could use of that kind, another kind of spore that might be used to incapacitate him, or
Absolutely. If you don't want a weapon or armor, you can have another item instead. And that item could be something like stunning spores, or something to render him unconscious, just briefly. The same kind of thing that they used on you, perhaps.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I will take just that and reveal some of those spores into my hand from my cloak and blow them into his face, basically.
Okay. So, due to the nature of Luthor, there are going to be complications here. And they may not be what you think. So I'm going to ask you to make, and you can choose any skill you feel appropriate here, because it's kind of ranged combat. It's also kind of survival, or even science or medicine. So whichever one works for you, plus I think dexterity or cunning works. So yeah, we've got a lot of possible options here, but you can choose what makes sense to you narratively.
All right, well, let's say that this is medicine and dexterity in that case. And I will be rolling d10s. So that's 2 plus 3, so 5 will be rolled in total, right?
Yeah, so 5d10, and you'll be looking for 8s, 9s, and 10s. 10s count as 2 hits.
4. I had 1 10.
Okay, then. And remember, you can also, and we didn't cover this earlier, listeners or players, but this group also has momentum. Momentum points are like rewrites in They Came From, in that the group starts with them at the beginning of the game, equal to the number of players, that's 3. Momentum can be used to add an enhancement on a 1-for-1 basis. 2 momentum can be used to change a failure into a success with consequence or success. Or 1 point of momentum can describe a story element in a scene that is now a fact. So keep that in mind. So if you want to start adjusting your environment around you, that kind of thing, you can start using momentum now to do so. You have 3 right now, and you will gain more momentum as you fail dice rolls. As it is, you successfully blow the spores into Luthor's face, and with 4 hits, you can also buy off the complication, which was that it would basically render Luthor unconscious, but send the worms that make up his body into a frenzy of aggression. The spores can work on them in the exact same way, if you want to buy off that complication.
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay, so even the worms are affected, as Luthor slumps onto the cage. The cultists don't know what happened. They weren't watching him closely. They were watching what was going on down the tunnel and why the rest of the Furundina can't find this interloper that they heard down there. So he is now pretty much face to face with Kiva and Trillian, albeit one eye still open. Strangely, despite the fact his head is on top of the cage, his eyeball hangs out slightly so that it's just within the bony slats. But the other one is shut, and dribble starts emerging from his mouth. He is unconscious. For how long, you don't know. We'll go back round to Kiva now. Kiva, thump! Luthor lands within an inch of your face. You're going to have to act quickly.
Yeah, no, first, immediate response is to cover my mouth with my hand, because oh my god, this is so gross, oh gosh, I'm not super...
Worms start pouring from his mouth.
No, oh god, okay. Can I take my hand, where I can form water, and I want to push it, like, right up against his body, and I'm not super strong, I only have 1 dot. In this ability, but can I form enough pressure to kind of push him off? I'm not very strong, but maybe with the help of the water, I can just push his body of worms off of me and just off the cage.
Absolutely, though doing so will almost certainly draw the attention of the other cultists around it. I mean, you're going to get their attention at some point, but if you do this in concert with your party members, your friends, it may well be that this is the ideal thing to do. After all, he is currently weighing down the lid of the cage. So if you want to do it, you go for it. I will ask you to make an esoterica and might roll, please.
right.
Remember, you can use momentum if you need to.
2 hits.
You blast him back with a wash of elemental water. He doesn't fly far into the distance, but he does drop backwards from the cage. This is all happening simultaneously. The cultists turn because they now notice their leader has crumped to the ground. So we go back to Luck. Luck, you're going to have to move fast if you're going to take advantage of this. The ground is rumbling something fierce now. Furundin is approaching.
Did the cage have, like, a door?
Well, the roof, or the lid of it, is what constitutes a door. It is bound with thick silks. You might be able to cut through it if you have some kind of blade on your person.
No, my weapon is more of a range sort of thing. Maybe we can knock the whole cage over. I'll give it a go. I'm not very strong. I tried just to barge down the cage with my little body, just trying to at least get it to dislodge, and I say to the others, we need to get the cage up!
Well, if one of you is helping the other, so if Trillin is doing the same thing, I'll give you an enhancement. One of you an enhancement. And if you have a bond with each other, bear in mind that will also add enhancements. So what is the Luck and Trillin bond? And who wants to take the aggressive action? Basically, look for who has the best athletics and might or close combat and might. And that's the person who should roll. And then they should gain the enhancement equivalent to your bond.
I'd have 3 dice. What about you, Trillin?
On might I would have 2, but close combat is not really my thing. And then, yes, for the bond we have 2, don't we?
Yes.
Well, in that case, I suggest it be you, Craig. Roll 3 dice. You get 2 enhancements straight away, based on the strength of your bond. So, I wish you luck.
Sadly, that is a failure. But we do have some momentum.
Yep, you can spend... So you gain a momentum after the action resolves, but before then you can spend 2 momentum if you wish to change a failure into a success.
Would everyone be okay with that?
We need to get out of this cage.
Please.
Then let's spend some momentum as I bravely batter the cage once and nothing happens, and I just do it again and again and again, like, come on!
Yeah, the cultists are drawing their daggers now that are like particularly wicked blades, but luckily just at that time, with a sharp intake of breath and then ramming against the bone structure, you send the frame flying. It hits one of the cultists, not a lot of them, but now the 4 of you, because Zions has been unconscious during all of this, being a useful NPC, you are able to start crawling your way to your feet. The ground is rumbling now to the point that dust is starting to fall from the ceiling above you. You have a couple of options here, team. You can run for the opening that Luck created in the tunnel wall. Main issue is, you know there will be more cultists there because they're trying to look for the people who are intruding. Or you can try and gauge which direction Furundin is approaching in and run in the opposite direction, and hope that you will find another exit en route. Alternatively, you have 1 momentum left. Oh no, 2 because you failed that roll. So you could spend 1 momentum to describe a story element in a scene that is now fact.
I mean, we did find that exit, and I have a way of dealing quickly with a few cultists, but, to my friends, I simply say, which way? Hurry!
Zayan's rubbing his head, says, whichever way is away from that rumbling, I've got a terrible headache.
Oh, you always have a terrible headache, Zayan. Alright, just follow me! And I just dart off, start skipping along as I normally do. I'm quite a dexterous fellow, running to the exit we've revealed, because I have a plan when I get there first, which I think I will.
And I just follow after, Look, he knows what he's doing.
Well, you're not the only ones heading in this direction, as a whole batch of Furundina now. Some of them stay behind to try and wake up their leader, who is dissolving into several mounds of worms, but the rest are in hot pursuit of you. Luck, you have the advantage. And so you're able to lead the group. People aren't going to individually have to roll for this. You make it to the opening in the wall, and of course, on the other side of it, you're able to see a narrow passage. You haven't seen this before. It is filled with jagged stones protruding from the ceiling and roof. It looks like this is barely traversed, but it is out of the direct impact zone of Furundin's approach. Unfortunately, at the end of this passage, you can see some rather concerned and curious-looking cultists who are, A, irritated that they cannot see the people who are intruding on the ceremony, and B, upset because they're not going to be in the audience to watch Furundin go by as they've been set off on a job. So if you're going to run towards them, yes, you're running out of one danger, but you're running into another. What is your plan here, Luck?
My plan is simple. Run forwards, do a little roll between them, and yell out, so my friends are aware what's going on, "Smoke bomb!" And then fire a smoke bomb at these two lovely people. A smoke bomb gives them a moderate complication of low visibility, mainly if they're trying to hit us from a distance, but it also, if unresolved, gives the dazed status effect, and could potentially give the suffocating area effect as well.
Well, it is a very narrow passage, so I would suggest that it will. That means the rest of you are going to have to charge your way through on very rough terrain, so I'm going to require rolls now. So let's start with you, Craig. You dash forward. Luck dashes forward with smoke bomb in hand and screams out, what?
Smoke bomb!
And now you throw it to the ground. I'm not going to make you roll to throw it, because it is just a simple smoke bomb. Throw it on the ground. The smoke starts filling the passage. At this point, I will give you Luck, because you are surprising these individuals, 2 enhancement to navigating your way around them and around the sharp walls of the passage. You still need to make an athletics and dexterity action. Trillin and Kiva. It's a great idea from the Hobgob. You can't deny this. It was quick thinking on the part of Luck to throw a smoke bomb at that time. However, it does leave you in something of a situation. You now need to run through a cloud of smoke that contains 2 armed cultists, as well as jagged walls. So, best of luck with that. Can I ask both Trillin and Kiva to also roll athletics and dexterity? And if you have any theses, syntheses, or sorceries that might assist you at this time, worth using them. You still have... in fact, I was wrong earlier. You will only have 1 momentum because you ultimately didn't fail that last roll, having spent momentum on it. So you only have 1 left to spend.
For the record, I got 4 hits.
I mean, that enables you to not only bypass the cultists, but buy off the complication of the rough terrain surrounding you. You dance through this group as if smoke is your natural habitat. You know these dark passages like the back of your hand. In the case of Kiva, literally the back of her hand. So, yeah, you are able to make your way through, skirting around danger, and not cut yourself open on the rough-hewn passages. Let's see if it's the same tale for Trillin and Kiva.
Out of interest, on 4 hits, if I buy off the complication, do I have any hits remaining?
Definitely. You have got 1 hit remaining.
Could I use that to bolster our momentum?
You couldn't use it to purchase a momentum. But what you could do is add an enhancement, I would say, to one of your companions' actions. In fact, because you had 2 enhancements as well, you could give them, split between them, 3 enhancements.
I would like to do that. The basis being that my friends know that when I say smoke bomb, that means I'm going to fire a smoke bomb, and they know to, get their hoods up and not, just run into the smoke and breathe it in, because that would be very silly.
Frankly, Trillin and Kiva, this is the first time Luck has used a smoke bomb in a way that's been remotely useful, but yes, you have experienced his errant launching of smoke bombs before. Okay, Trillin. So there's 3 enhancements that you could potentially benefit from here. You only need 2 to buy off the complication. How do you do?
1.
That's 1 hit to navigate around the cultists through the smoke.
Is there some way that I can utilize my soul sight, I mean, I suppose it's mostly about darkness normally. Is that something that...
I would say so. It means that you're able to see these cultists well enough. So, yeah, really all you're trying to work your way around is the sharp-edged rocks. So, yeah, okay. With the hit that you score and the enhancements that you've been granted, if you spend one of those enhancements, then you can get by following Luck in Luck's wake, and that leaves 2 enhancements for Kiva if she needs them.
That sounds great.
So yeah, you see the outlines of the cultists as you approach, your soul sight enabling it. And you can, as you approach, quickly back against the wall, slide past them without touching the rough-hewn stone, and then make your way delicately down the passage. Kiva?
Well, you said it yourself. I kind of know this place like the back of my hand, right? Because I got 4 hits.
So I would suggest then that those enhancements aren't needed for you to traverse this area. We will turn them entirely into enforcing this dazed effect on the cultist, shall we?
Love that.
So the passage behind you becomes suffocating, just as Kiva, you make your way through. Zions as well gruffly pushes his way through, not so concerned with lithe dexterity, your hunter. But it doesn't matter, because by this point the cultists are coughing and spluttering and trying to crawl their way back to Furundin's tunnel. If you were back there, you would then see what is a bit like a London Underground train charging past the passage entrance as Furundin carves its way through the wide tunnel, likely to make a new one somewhere. Whether that means Luthar and the rest of his cultists got consumed, you do not know, because that's way behind you now.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the Serpent God's Fangs for The World Below. The World Below is published by Onyx Path Publishing, and you can find the link to the game in the show notes. Joining us in this series are none other than V from Queen's Court Games and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music was made by Aegir Sonus and was used with permission from their label Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient for your gaming table. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Antxon and Graham Barey for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult of Infinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember that the world below provides.